First thing you're going to do is take your trigger finger and press against this little bump right there, and slide it back until right there lines up with this little notch while you're pressing it out, and it should just, with pressure putting on it, it should just pop out like that. And you can let it slide down and go ahead and just pull that out a little bit, and it's loose. Slide just comes off, and we're done with that till we go back together. First thing you're going to do, if you need to go in past the slide, is where you got another detent, a little bump right there. You're just going to keep playing with this with your left thumb and your finger while pushing on this, and just wiggle it out very carefully. Find a little sweet spot. Do that again. Somewhere in between safety and fire, it'll find a spot it likes, and it will just push out. When you get about that right there, cover with your right hand right there and catch the detent in there that pushes against the safety and the slide stop lever, because that's going to come out of here in a little bit of a hurry. If I can get it to move now. Yeah, I just heard it kick out. Now that detent is loose, and you can just slide the safety out. And what's going to happen is the safety keeps the beaver tail in place. So when you take that out, this is going to come free. I'm going to go ahead and just let the detent drop out on the table. I'm just going to pull that out and let the pressure off of that. Now this is loose. Now where you're going to need the hammer and the punch I told you about is just to lightly bump that. I've got a little just chunk of wood to keep it up off the table where I can set the frame on it. And I'm going to take a punch and just set it right inside where that detent is. And I'm going to just bump it one good time, not too hard, and just bump it loose. Now what it should look like is it's just slid out about halfway. This is under a little bit of pressure when the mainspring and all of these parts are working right. Your hammer's loose, so it's not going to be under as much pressure. So just go ahead and take your punch, and you can either push this out by hand, press it out, or you may have to bump it a little bit more. And there it just fell out. So I'm keeping it with just the punch holding it in, and that's your mainspring keeper. I'm going to slide my punch back out, and you can see where the spring is already pushing the mainspring housing out. It just let off all the pressure because I forgot to tell you about a minute ago, decock the hammer before you take your mainspring housing out. After your safety's out and the beaver tail's loose, decock the hammer. I'm glad I was holding on to that. I'm just going to slide this out tenderly and lovely. And I'm going to let the beaver tail come off. It's loose. What you've got is a needle that's attached, it's pinned to the hammer where it pivots, right behind where the pin holds the hammer, that the hammer pivots in the gun. You've got the cup, which because of the spring tension it come off the spring. I'm going to slide the mainspring housing out. I'm going to take the cup and set it aside. Now you've got a little flat spring that just sits in there loose, that way up, with a little tang hooking back up here. I'm going to set that aside, and this is going to stay in for right now. Inside the mainspring housing, you got your spring, and this will probably stay in it. This is what the mainspring and this little thing are supposed to look like. And the cup has a little tit at the bottom that feeds into the top of the spring. All of this needle rides inside a groove in the beaver tail, and the hammer needle goes in the cup. It's a loose fit. John Browning made it loose so it'll function every time. It's not going to be too tight. And that's basically what that looks like on the inside, and that's how it comes apart. If you need to, I'll make you another video on putting it back together, but that's how you get that apart so you can inspect. First of all, make sure this needle looks like that. It should have a shank about 1 inch long that's round with a kind of rounded tip. Not supposed to be sharp on any edges. Make sure the cup looks like that. Make sure the spring is about 1 inch, 1.1 long, and there should look like it's new. And then this little guy, that should be a little slightly rounded tip. It should still look pretty sharp. And that's basically it. Alright, man, hope that helps.